Let's dive right in. What a bold thesis here, right? We're taking 10 Nobel laureates and, demonstrating how their work, from Schrödinger's wave mechanics to Kahneman's insights, all connect into one unified framework.
That really is ambitious. So, you're saying their discoveries, though originating from very different fields, are just different facets of one overarching truth.
Exactly. Take Schrödinger in quantum mechanics, his wave equation, which tells us that particles remain in a kind of superposition until observed. It's like every decision we face exists in multiple states until we actually choose a path.
Yeah, right. So he's essentially laying the groundwork for thinking about decision-making as a collapsing of possibilities?
Precisely. And then, look at Feynman. He talks about energy conservation in such an elegant way, almost like your brain is performing these, Feynman path integrals when it weighs different future outcomes axiomatically, subconsciously even, before making a choice.
That's pretty wild. And then there's Prigogine. He introduced the concept of dissipative structures, right? How does that fit into all of this?
Great question. Prigogine showed that systems far from equilibrium can self-organize, consuming energy to maintain order. Think of it like this. Your body, your everyday life, even your career or relationships are dissipative structures. They require constant energy to keep you, well, organized.
Yeah, I can see that. So, in a nutshell, everything is really just about managing entropy, right? Percent exactly.
Right on. And here's the kicker. The second law of thermodynamics says entropy always increases. So, unless you, work smarter rather than harder, disorder is going to win eventually. It means, for instance, you optimize processes in, say, turbulent systems or even in trading by exploiting those natural entropy gradients.
That's interesting. Could you give a more concrete example? Like how would that apply in, engineering or finance?
Sure thing. Picture this. When designing a turbine blade, you don't just brute strengthen it. You, optimize its aerodynamics. Let the physics do most of the heavy lifting. And with trading, rather than crunching endless numbers, you look for structural mispricings when the market's implied volatility doesn't match what actually happens. It's like you're harvesting energy from an entropy gap without overexerting yourself.
And then there's Kahneman in the mix. How does behavioral economics, as explained by Taleb in Black Swan, feed into this unified view?
Now, that's super critical. Kahneman showed that humans are, inherently biased. We get probability all wrong, especially when emotions come into play. Taleb builds on that, highlighting that these biases create exactly the kind of mispricings I was talking about. While everyone else panics and overreacts during a downturn, you can methodically exploit that gap because you're less driven by emotion.
So, if I'm getting this correctly, use Prigogine to understand how systems need to fight entropy, Kahneman to grasp how human irrationality creates opportunities, and then Schrödinger and Feynman help you model this whole decision landscape?
Spot on. And there's even more to it. Onsager's reciprocal relations from non-equilibrium thermodynamics add another layer. They describe how different fluxes within a system interrelate, which can also be applied to, say, market movements, or even how you manage personal energy.
Wow, that's a deeply interconnected framework. But now, let's shift gears here. You also bridge quantum mechanics with Vedic philosophy, a link that's not exactly mainstream. How do you justify that connection?
Yeah, so this one's quite intriguing. It starts with thinkers like Penrose, who raised the possibility that quantum processes like coherence in microtubules might be linked to consciousness. What if those ancient Vedic traditions with their concept of Sakshi Chaitanya or witnessing consciousness were in essence describing what we now frame in quantum mechanical terms?
But isn't that a bit of a stretch? I mean, quantum effects are usually confined to the microscopic realm. How are they influencing, say, our everyday decision-making?
Well, That's the million-dollar question, right? Typically, quantum coherence doesn't scale because of decoherence, but Penrose argues that biological systems might have special structures that allow a level of quantum coherence to persist. And then there's the idea that meditation or disciplined attention, what Vedic traditions emphasize, acts as a sort of measurement process.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you're saying that meditation isn't just a mental health tool, it's literally influencing the collapse of your decision wave function, selecting which future becomes reality?
Exactly. When you're in meditation, you're training your attention to be precise, almost like, reducing the noise in your system. It creates a kind of quantum Zeno effect where frequent focus can actually stabilize certain outcomes. It reminds me a bit of the placebo effect, where your expectations can produce real physical changes.
Yeah, I get that. That's a really bold claim, though. I mean, some might argue that linking quantum mechanics with everyday consciousness and decision-making seems a bit too, poetic for hard science.
I totally get that critique, and it's fair. But consider that both fields, while seemingly disparate, are about how observation influences outcomes. In quantum mechanics, the act of measurement collapses possibilities. In life, our attention narrows down the realms of possibility. It's, not poetic fluff. It's about understanding how, fundamentally, our awareness interacts with reality.
So if I follow, the idea is that every decision you make is like a mini observation in a quantum system, and the more you focus on a particular outcome, the more likely it becomes?
Yes, exactly. Every moment, you're at a decision node. Your attention acts as that measurement, and just like in Feynman's framework, you're effectively sampling one path out of an array of possibilities. If you are systematically optimistic and target opportunities, you're directing the collapse toward favorable realities.
And that ties back nicely to the concept of working smarter rather than harder. You don't force outcomes. You design the conditions so that the probabilities are in your favor.
That's the essence of it. By understanding the physics of complex systems, the quirks of human psychology, and even the deeper insights from contemplative traditions, you can actually optimize decision-making. It's a merging of science with life strategy.
I appreciate that holistic approach. Still, don't you worry about oversimplifying the quantum aspects? I mean, clearly there's a big gap between subatomic processes and everyday decisions.
Fair point. But the goal here isn't to equate these processes one-to-one. It's to use them as metaphors or even models to think about decision-making in a fundamentally new way.
Right, gotcha. And what about Onsager's reciprocal relations? How do they play into this?
Onsager's ideas highlight the symmetry and interconnectedness in systems far from equilibrium. Their inclusion in this framework reinforces how even in seemingly chaotic systems, there are, underlying structures you can exploit, whether that's in nature, physics, or the erratic flows of financial markets.
Exactly. It really is an impressively ambitious framework, one that ties together disparate pillars of modern science and age-old philosophy to explain how we navigate the complexities of life.
Absolutely. At its core, it's about understanding that every decision, every investment in energy, be it in our bodies, careers, or relationships, is a battle against entropy. But more importantly, it's about harnessing the principles that govern both the physical world and our inner experiences to work smarter.
This certainly calls for an interdisciplinary approach, combining physics, economics, psychology, and even spirituality to, optimize our lives.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so revolutionary. By appreciating the interconnectedness of these ideas, we open up, new ways to think about challenges and opportunities. Whether you're trading stocks or meditating for clarity, it's all part of the same grand playbook.
Yeah, for sure. Quite inspiring, really. And it all points to one thing. If we learn how to manage the natural tendencies of chaos and use our own biases and attention strategically, we can influence our outcomes. That's powerful.
Indeed it is. Even if some might say we're stretching things a bit, I see it as expanding our perspective, daring to put together pieces of a vast puzzle from across disciplines.
Agreed. In the end, it's not about forcing reality, but about fine-tuning our approach to harness the underlying laws of nature and mind.
Exactly. It's a call to look at life's decisions as dynamic, an interplay of physics, psychology, and pure will. And that, I believe, is how we truly work with the world rather than against
Right on.
it.
Thanks for this deep dive. It's been both challenging and enlightening.
My pleasure. Always amazing to explore these intersections and see how they can illuminate our day-to-day choices.
Until next time, then, keep using that smart, interwoven approach to life.